Commander Hana stood in front of the large screen in her ship. Red lights blinked across the surface of the planet below. Each red dot meant dead soldiers. Her soldiers. She had brought 5,000 warriors to this small world. Now only 2,000 were still alive. The humans were supposed to be easy to defeat. They had simple weapons and old ships. Their planet looked peaceful with small towns and farms. Intelligence reports said they were weak. Intelligence reports were wrong. Hana touched the screen with her clawed finger. The human settlement called New Busan was now under her control. Smoke still rose from the buildings, but most of the humans had escaped into the wildlands beyond the town. Her troops had captured only a few hundred. The rest had run into the forests and mountains. "Commander," said Officer Somin from behind her, "the escape routes show over 3,000 humans fled into the wilderness. Should we pursue them?" Hana turned around. Her purple skin looked darker in the red light of the command room. "Of course we pursue them. We cannot let them regroup. Send out hunting parties. Use the fast scouts and tracking beasts. These primitives cannot hide from our technology." Somin nodded and walked to her station. Soon orders went out to the scout teams across the planet. Find the humans. Capture them. Kill those who resist. In the forest below, a man named Do-hyun crouched behind a fallen tree. He was 34 years old and worked in the mines before the aliens came. His hands were rough and strong from years of digging in the hard ground. His body was lean and tough from the physical work. Do-hyun had watched from the hills as the alien ships attacked his town. He saw the purple-skinned warriors with their energy weapons destroy everything he knew. His wife Minji and daughter Hyung were somewhere in those burning buildings. He could not save them. All he could do was run. But running felt wrong. Do-hyun had never run from anything in his life. The mines had taught him to face danger head-on. Rock falls, gas leaks, equipment failures. A miner learned to handle problems, not avoid them. Yet here he was, hiding in the forest like a scared animal. The sound of engines made him look up. 3 alien aircraft flew overhead, moving in a search pattern. They had lights that scanned the ground below. Do-hyun pressed himself against the tree trunk and stayed very still. The ships passed without seeing him. When the sound faded, Do-hyun stood up. Other humans were scattered through these woods. Families with children, old people, workers like himself. The aliens would find them easily with their machines. Unless someone led the hunters away, Do-hyun looked at his worn mining boots. He had walked long distances in these boots, sometimes for 12 hours straight in the deep tunnels. His legs were strong. His lungs were good from years of working in thin air. Maybe he could not fight the aliens with weapons, but he could do something else. He could run. High above in orbit, Scout Leader Minho received his orders. He commanded 6 of the best hunters in the Valtharian fleet. Each rode a Cathara, a 4-legged beast bred for speed and endurance. The Catharas could run for 8 hours without stopping. Their riders carried advanced tracking equipment and energy weapons. Target is a single human male, Minho told his team as they prepared to land. Mining worker, approximately 34 years old. He was seen fleeing southeast from the settlement. Intelligence says he may be heading for the mountain caves. The other scouts checked their equipment. Lieutenant Jinho adjusted his scanner. Sergeant Kyung tested his weapon. They had hunted many species across the galaxy. Humans would be no different. Remember, Minho continued, humans are fragile. They tire quickly and have poor endurance. This should be a short hunt. We capture him alive if possible. Command wants to question survivors about hidden settlements. The scout ship landed in a clearing 5 kilometers from New Busan. The Cathars were released from their holding pens. The beasts stretched their long legs and sniffed the air. They stood as tall as a human at the shoulder, with thick muscles and sharp claws for gripping rocky ground. Minho mounted his Cathara and activated his scanner. The device immediately picked up human footprints leading into the forest. The prints were deep and widely spaced. The human was running fast when he made them. Track is fresh, Minho reported. No more than 2 hours old. Formation Delta, maintain visual contact. The hunting party moved into the forest. The Catharas moved silently through the trees, their padded feet making no sound on the soft ground. The scanners showed the human trail continuing straight ahead, toward the distant mountains. After 1 hour, they found the first rest spot. Broken branches showed where the human had stopped. Scuff marks in the dirt suggested he had sat down for a few minutes, but the trail continued with the same long stride pattern. He is moving well for a primitive, said Jinho. But Catharis can maintain this pace for much longer than any biological creature. Minho agreed. The hunt would be over by nightfall, but as the hours passed, something strange happened. The human tracks never stopped. Every clearing they crossed, every stream they forded, every hill they climbed, the footprints continued with the same steady rhythm. The human had not rested again since that first stop. By sunset, Minho's team had covered over 40 kilometers. The Catharis were breathing hard but could continue. The scanners showed they were gaining on their target. The human's stride length had shortened slightly, showing fatigue. "We camp here," Minho decided as darkness fell. "The human must rest soon. We will have him by morning." The scouts made a small camp and fed their mounts. The Catharis lay down to sleep, their breathing slowly returning to normal. Minho studied his scanner one more time before sleeping. The human tracks continued into the darkness ahead, but no living thing could run all night. The primitive would collapse soon. 20 kilometers away, Do-Hyun jogged through the moonlit forest. His mining boots found sure footing on the rocky trail. His breathing was steady and deep. Sweat covered his body, but he felt strong. The mine work had taught him this pace. When the elevators broke down, miners had to walk up from the deep levels. Sometimes that meant climbing for hours through narrow tunnels. Do-Hyun had done this many times. His body knew how to keep moving when others would stop. Behind him, he knew the aliens were following. Their flying machines had passed overhead several times during the day, but they had not found him yet. The thick forest canopy hid him from their sensors. Do-Hyun thought about his family as he ran. Minji would tell him to be careful, to not take foolish risks. But sometimes a man had to take risks. If he could lead the alien hunters away from the other survivors, maybe some families would escape. Maybe children would live to see another day. The trail ahead climbed toward the high peaks. Do-Hyun had worked in those mountains, mapping mineral deposits for the mining company. He knew every path and hidden valley. The aliens might have better technology, but this was his world. These were his mountains. He settled into the long rhythm that would carry him through the night. One foot in front of the other. Breathe in for 3 steps, breathe out for 3 steps. Keep the pace steady. Keep moving forward. The aliens expected him to stop and rest like their own species would. They did not understand what millions of years of evolution had built into human bodies. They did not know that his ancestors had hunted animals by running them to death across endless plains. Do-Hyun smiled grimly as he climbed higher into the mountains. The hunters would learn soon enough what it meant to chase a human who had decided to run. Minho woke before dawn. The forest was quiet except for the sound of sleeping Catharis. He checked his scanner and frowned. The human tracks continued past their camp, heading up the mountain trail. The footprints were clear in the soft dirt, made during the night hours when his team was sleeping. "Impossible," Minho muttered. He activated his communicator and called to his team. "Wake up." The human kept moving through the night. Jinho sat up from his sleeping mat. That cannot be right. No biological being runs in complete darkness through unknown terrain. But the scanner did not lie. The human trail led away from their campsite, up a steep rocky path that would challenge even a Cathara in daylight. Somehow the primitive had navigated this dangerous route in the dark. "Pack quickly," Minho ordered. "We have lost time." The hunting party moved out as the sun rose. The Catharis were fresh after their night of rest, but they struggled on the steep mountain path. Loose rocks made footing dangerous. The trail switched back and forth up the cliff face, forcing them to move slowly. After 2 hours of hard climbing, they reached a flat area where they could rest the mounts. Minho studied his scanner readings and called to his team. "The human passed through here approximately 4 hours ago," he said. His stride pattern shows some fatigue, but he maintained good speed on this difficult terrain. Sergeant Kyung looked at the rocky path ahead. "Commander, this trail requires technical climbing skills. How does a miner navigate such terrain in darkness?" Minho had no answer. According to their intelligence files, humans had poor night vision and were afraid of heights. Yet this human had climbed routes that challenged trained Veltharian scouts. They pushed forward. The trail led across narrow ledges and through gaps between massive boulders. Several times they had to dismount and lead the Catharis by hand through sections too dangerous to ride. At midday, they found evidence that made Minho's stomach tighten with worry. A piece of torn cloth hung from a sharp rock. The cloth was stained with blood, but instead of the large blood trail they expected from a wounded animal, they found only small drops leading forward. "He is injured but still moving," reported Jin-Ho after examining the blood. "The wound is minor. Probably scraped his arm on this rock." What disturbed Min-Ho was not the injury but what it meant. The human had been moving fast enough in darkness to collide with rocks, yet somehow maintained his footing and continued running. No rational being took such risks unless driven by desperation or madness. By afternoon, the Catharas were showing serious strain. These beasts were bred for speed and endurance, capable of running all day across flat terrain. But the constant climbing and careful navigation was wearing them down. Foam gathered around their mouths as they panted heavily. "We need to rest the mounts," said Lieutenant Jin-Ho. "Another hour like this, and they will collapse." Min-Ho checked his scanner. The human trail continued ahead, climbing toward a high mountain pass. The footprints showed no change in rhythm or stride length. After running for over 24 hours through difficult terrain, the primitive showed no signs of slowing down. 30 minutes rest, Min-Ho decided. Water the Catharas and check their feet for injuries. While his team tended to their mounts, Min-Ho activated his long-range communicator. Commander Hana needed to know what they were dealing with. "Command, this is Scout Leader Min-Ho. We have been pursuing the human target for 26 hours. The subject has not stopped to rest and shows no signs of fatigue." Static crackled through the communicator before Hana's voice responded. "Repeat that report, Scout Leader. The human has been running continuously since yesterday afternoon. He traveled through the night over dangerous mountain terrain. Our Catharas are near exhaustion, but the target maintains steady pace." A long pause followed. Then Hana's voice came back, sharp with disbelief. "Check your equipment, Scout Leader. No biological being can maintain pursuit speed for that duration." Min-Ho looked at his scanner display. The readings were clear and consistent. "Equipment is functioning normally, Commander. The human trail is unmistakable. He has covered over 60 kilometers through mountain terrain without rest." "Continue pursuit," Hana ordered. "Report again in 6 hours." The communicator went silent. Min-Ho stared at the device, then looked ahead at the mountain pass where the human trail disappeared into the clouds. For the first time in his career as a hunter, he felt a cold touch of fear. When they resumed the chase, 2 of his Catharas began to limp. The constant climbing had damaged their feet. Sergeant Kyung's mount could barely walk, forcing them to abandon it at a stream crossing. "This is madness," Kyung said as he shouldered his pack to continue on foot. "We are destroying our mounts to chase one primitive who should have collapsed hours ago." But Min-Ho could not stop now. His reputation as a hunter was at stake. More importantly, if this human could do impossible things, what did that say about the rest of his species? Were all humans capable of such endurance, or was this one somehow different? They climbed higher into the mountains as the day wore on. The air grew thin and cold. The Catharas struggled to breathe at this altitude. Several times they had to stop while the beast recovered from the climbing. The human trail never stopped. As evening approached, they reached the mountain pass. Here the trail leveled out, giving them a clear view across a wide valley. Min-Ho raised his scanner and swept the area ahead. "Contact," he said quietly. "I have the human on visual scanner. Distance approximately 2 kilometers. Through the enhanced scope, they could see a small figure moving steadily across the valley floor. Even at this distance, there was something disturbing about the way the human moved. No pauses, no hesitation, no signs of the exhaustion that should have killed him hours ago. "How is this possible?" whispered Jin-Ho. "We have been chasing him for 2 days. Our Catharas are dying and he just keeps running." Min-Ho had no answer. In his 20 years as a scout, he had hunted creatures across dozens of worlds. He knew the limits of biological endurance. Every species had a breaking point where muscles failed and consciousness shut down to preserve life. But this human seemed to have no such limits. As darkness fell again, they watched the distant figure disappear into the shadows on the far side of the valley. Min-Ho knew they could not follow in the dark. The Catharas needed rest, and his own team was approaching exhaustion. "We camp here," he decided. "Tomorrow we will catch him." But even as he said the words, Min-Ho wondered if that was true. The human had already done the impossible. What if tomorrow brought more impossibilities? That night, as his team slept and the Catharas lay gasping in the thin mountain air, Min-Ho stayed awake watching the valley below. Sometimes he thought he saw movement in the darkness, a shadow that might be the human still running through the night. The thought made him shiver in the cold mountain air. What kind of creature ran for 2 days without stopping? What kind of species produced such beings? And most disturbing of all, if one human could do this, what could thousands of them do? Far below in the valley, Do-hyun maintained his steady pace through the darkness. His body had found its rhythm now. The initial fatigue of the first day had passed, replaced by a strange state where pain became distant and movement became automatic. His ancestors had called this the hunting trance. The state where a human being became something more than human, became a force of nature that simply would not stop until the prey collapsed. But tonight, Do-hyun was not the hunter. He was leading the hunt exactly where he wanted it to go. Commander Hana paced back and forth in her command center. The large display screen showed the positions of all her scout teams across the planet. Most of the red dots that marked her forces were moving slowly or had stopped completely, but the blue dots representing humans continued to move at steady speeds across the map. "This is impossible," she said for the 10th time in the past hour. "Biological creatures do not run for days without rest." Officer Soman looked up from her communications station. Her purple face was pale with worry. "Commander, I am receiving similar reports from all our hunting teams. The humans are not behaving like any species we have encountered before." The main communicator crackled to life. Scout leader Minho's voice came through, thick with exhaustion and something that might have been fear. "Command, this is Minho. The human has been running for 3 days straight. He should be dead." Hana stopped pacing. "Repeat that, Scout leader. 3 days, Commander. No rest, no stops longer than a few minutes. We have lost 2 Catharas and 1 Scout. The human just keeps moving." "That is biologically impossible," Hana snapped. "No creature can maintain pursuit speeds for 72 hours. Check your tracking equipment." "Equipment is functioning normally," Minho replied. "Commander, I am looking at the human right now through my scope. He is crossing the Cathara Flats at a steady run. My remaining Catharas can barely walk, but this primitive shows no signs of slowing." Hana felt a cold knot form in her stomach. The Cathara Flats were named after the hunting beasts because they were the only creatures capable of crossing that wasteland. The territory was over 50 kilometers of loose sand and scattered rocks with no water and no shelter from the burning sun. "How far has he traveled total?" she asked. "Over 140 kilometers through mountain terrain," Minho answered, "and now he enters the flats. Commander, if he crosses that wasteland without stopping, he will be beyond our ability to pursue." The communication channel went quiet. Hana stared at the display screen, watching the blue dot that represented a single human moving steadily across terrain that challenged her best troops with their advanced equipment. "Commander," said a voice from behind her. Hana turned to see Young-ho, the expedition's chief biologist. His scaled skin had turned pale gray, which in his species indicated extreme distress. "I need to show you something," Young-ho continued, "about human physiology." Hana followed the biologist to his station. Young-ho activated a holographic display that showed the internal structure of a human body. The image rotated slowly, highlighting different systems in various colors. "I have been studying the captured humans," Young-ho said quietly. "Their biology is unlike anything in our databases. Look at this." The display zoomed in on the human cardiovascular system. A network of blood vessels appeared in red, showing a complex pattern throughout the body. "Their circulatory system is incredibly efficient," Young-ho explained. "They can deliver oxygen to muscles for extended periods without the fatigue toxins that limit other species." The image changed to show the human leg muscles. Young-ho pointed to specific areas highlighted in blue. Their legs contain both fast-twitch and slow-twitch muscle fibers in unique proportions. Fast twitch for speed, slow twitch for endurance. But look at this. The display showed the human cooling system, millions of tiny pores covering the entire body surface. They cool their bodies through liquid secretion from their skin. No other species we know has such an efficient heat regulation system. It allows them to run in conditions that would kill other creatures from overheating. Hana stared at the display. "You are saying they are built for running?" "Not just running," Young-ho said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Persistence hunting. Commander, I have been researching their home world. Humans evolved as pursuit predators. They would chase large animals for days until the prey collapsed from exhaustion." Officer Samin joined them at the display. "What are you saying?" Young-ho activated another hologram, this one showing an ancient human chasing a large four-legged animal across an endless plain. On their world, humans were the apex persistence hunters. They would identify a target and simply never stop following it. They could not run as fast as their prey, but they could run longer, much longer. The image showed the human continuing to run while the animal staggered and fell. The prey would die from exhaustion and overheating while the human remained capable of continuing. No other predator hunted this way. It made humans the most feared species on their planet, even though they were smaller and weaker than many of their targets. Hana felt her knees go weak. She sat down heavily in her command chair. You are telling me that we are not hunting primitives. We are being hunted by a species evolved to kill through persistence. Yes, Young-Ho said simply. And Commander, there is something else. The biologist changed the display to show brain scans of humans during physical activity. When humans enter what they call the zone during extended running, their brain chemistry changes. Pain signals are suppressed. Time perception alters. They enter a state where they can run until their body literally falls apart, and they will not feel it happening. Someone stared at the brain scans. They can run themselves to death and not realize it? Worse than that, Young-Ho replied. They can run everything else to death first. The command center fell silent except for the hum of equipment. On the main display, the blue dot representing Minho's target human continued moving across the Cathara Flats at an unchanging pace. Commander, Soman said quietly, we have 47 pursuit teams tracking humans across this continent. If all of them are capable of this, Hana did not need her to finish the sentence. Her elite hunting forces were being led across impossible terrain by creatures that literally could not be exhausted. Her warriors and their mounts were dying while the humans just kept running. The communicator crackled again. This time it was Lieutenant Sung-Ho from the Eastern Pursuit Teams. Command, we have lost contact with 3 hunting teams in Sector 7. Last reports indicated they were pursuing human survivors into the Burning Maze Canyon system. Hana closed her eyes. The Burning Maze was a labyrinth of narrow canyons where temperatures reached deadly levels during the day. Only the most desperate creatures entered that wasteland. Any signs of the pursuit teams? She asked. Negative, Commander. But long-range scanners show human signatures still moving through the maze. They have been running for 4 days straight. Another voice joined the conversation. Command, this is Team Leader Hyunwoo in Sector 12. We found the remains of Team 6. Their Ketharas died from exhaustion. The humans they were chasing are still moving. More reports flooded in. Teams missing. Mounts dying. Equipment failures in impossible terrain. But always the humans continued running. Hana looked at the biologist. How long can they maintain this? Young-Ho consulted his data. On their homeworld, there are records of persistence hunts lasting for weeks. As long as they have water and basic nutrition, a human in peak condition can run almost indefinitely. Weeks? Soman whispered. Commander, came Minho's voice through the communicator. Weaker now. The human has reached the far side of the flats. My last Kethara collapsed an hour ago. I am continuing on foot, but he is moving away faster than I can follow. Hana stared at the display screen. The blue dot was indeed moving away from Minho's position, heading toward the distant mountains where her forces could not follow. Scout leader, return to base immediately, she ordered. Commander, with respect, we cannot let him escape. If this human reaches other survivors and tells them our forces can be defeated through simple endurance, return to base. Hana shouted. That is an order. The communicator went silent. Hana stood up and walked to the main display. Dozens of blue dots moved across the map, each representing a human who had been running for days without stopping. Her forces were scattered and dying while the primitives demonstrated capabilities that defied everything she knew about biology. Commander, Soman said carefully, should we recall all pursuit teams? Hana stared at the moving blue dots. Each one represented a creature evolved to kill through persistence. Each one was leading her best troops to exhaustion and death in hostile terrain. For the first time since becoming a commander, Hana felt true fear. Not fear of defeat, but fear of the implications. If humans could do this, what else were they capable of? What happened when they stopped running away and started running toward something? Yes, she said quietly. Recall all teams. We need to rethink our entire approach to this species. But as she gave the order, Hana suspected it was already too late. The humans were not just running anymore. They were learning what their bodies could do. And soon, they would stop being the hunted and become the hunters. For 4 days, Do-Yun had run through landscapes that would have killed most living creatures. His body had become something beyond normal human limits. The initial pain and exhaustion had transformed into a strange state where his consciousness floated above the mechanical rhythm of his movement. Step, breathe, step, breathe. His heartbeat had synchronized with his footfalls. His mind had separated from his body, becoming pure will driving a biological machine designed for one purpose: to never stop moving. The mining tunnels had prepared him for this. Years of working in difficult conditions had taught his body how to function when normal people would collapse. But this was different. This was what his species was truly built for, written into his genes by millions of years of evolution. Behind him, Do-Yun knew the alien hunting party was dying. He had seen their flying machines searching for him, but they could not land in the rough terrain he chose to cross. Their ground forces had fallen behind hours ago. The aliens were learning what prey animals on ancient Earth had learned, that humans did not stop. The canyon ahead was perfect for his plan. Do-Yun had mapped this area during his mining surveys. The rock formations created a maze of narrow passages and hidden valleys. Most importantly, there was water and shelter at the center, where other human survivors had been gathering. But Do-Yun was not running toward safety anymore. He was running toward the moment when the hunted would become the hunter. In her command center, Commander Hana stared at reports flooding in from across the planet. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. Her forces had started the day pursuing scattered groups of primitive humans. Now her best troops were stranded in hostile terrain, while their targets demonstrated impossible endurance. "Commander," Officer Sumin said from her station, "I have disturbing intelligence from our orbital surveillance." Hana walked over to examine Somin's display. The screen showed aerial views of various locations across the continent where pursuit teams had been operating. "What am I looking at?" Hana asked. Somin highlighted several areas on the map. "These are positions where our teams last made contact before going silent." Notice the pattern. The highlighted areas formed rough lines across the landscape, all pointing toward the central mountain region. "The humans are not fleeing randomly," Somin continued. "They are leading our forces away from strategic positions and toward specific terrain features." Hana felt a chill run down her spine. "You are saying this is coordinated?" "More than that, Commander. I believe we are not hunting the humans. They are hunting us." Before Hana could respond, Communications Officer Ji-Won called out from across the room. "Commander, we have lost contact with Team 15 in the southern canyons. Last transmission indicated they were closing on a group of human families." "How many teams does that make?" Hana asked. Ji-Won checked her records. 17 teams reported missing or unable to continue pursuit. That represents over 100 of our best scouts and their mounts. The numbers hit Hana like a physical blow. In 4 days of hunting primitives, she had lost nearly 10% of her total ground forces. Not to superior weapons or technology, but to creatures that simply refused to stop running. "Commander," called biologist Young-Ho from his station, "I have completed my analysis of human endurance capabilities. The results are disturbing." Hana joined him at his workstation. Young-Ho had multiple displays showing comparative data between human and Veltharian physiology. "Based on my studies of captured specimens and our pursuit data, humans can maintain moderate running speeds for potentially unlimited durations given adequate water and basic nutrition," Young-Ho reported. "Unlimited?" Hana repeated. "Their bodies enter a state called aerobic metabolism where they burn fat stores for energy. A typical human carries enough fat reserves to run for weeks without additional food. Their cooling system prevents overheating. Their skeletal structure minimizes impact damage. Commander, they are biological persistence hunting machines." Young-Ho activated another display showing historical data from the human homeworld. On Earth, humans regularly participate in recreational running events covering hundreds of kilometers. They do this for enjoyment, not survival. What we are seeing here is humans using their natural capabilities under survival pressure. Hana studied the data with growing horror. "You are telling me that everything we have observed, the impossible endurance, the refusal to stop, the ability to function without rest, this is normal for their species?" "Normal and completely sustainable," Young-Ho confirmed. "Commander, we have been thinking about this situation incorrectly. We assumed we were hunting prey animals that would exhaust themselves fleeing from us. Instead, we are the prey being led into exhaustion by predators." The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. Every officer present understood what this meant. They had encountered a species evolved specifically to kill through persistence. Every human on the planet was potentially capable of running their pursuers to death. "Commander," Soman said quietly, "if this is accurate, we need to completely change our approach. Traditional pursuit tactics will not work against creatures that literally cannot be exhausted." Before Hana could respond, an alarm sounded from the communication station. Ji-won looked up with alarm. "Commander, we have an emergency transmission from Scout Leader Minho." "Put him through," Hana ordered. Minho's voice came through the speakers, weak and strained. "Command, this is Minho. I am transmitting from grid reference 334221. My entire team is down. Ketharis are dead. We need immediate extraction." "What is your status, Scout Leader?" Hana asked. The human led us into the Blazing Gorge Canyon system. The terrain was impossible for mounted pursuit, but he ran through it like flat ground. We had to abandon our mounts and continue on foot. Then, Minho's voice trailed off. "Report," Hana demanded. "Commander?" The human stopped running. After 4 days, he just stopped and waited for us. We found him sitting calmly by a water source in the center of the canyon maze. Hana exchanged glances with her officers. "Did you capture him?" "No, Commander." When we approached, he stood up and spoke to us. He said, "Your mistake was thinking you were the hunters." Then he ran again. Not away from us, but around us. He has been circling our position for 6 hours. Circling? He runs in a wide pattern around our location. Every time we try to move, he appears and forces us back toward the center. "Commander, we are not hunting him anymore. He is hurting us." The communication channel filled with static, then Minho's voice returned, more urgent now. "Commander, there are more of them. Other humans have arrived. They are not running away anymore. They are working together, surrounding our position. I count at least 12 humans moving in coordinated patterns around the canyon." Hana felt her heart's race as she realized what was happening. The humans had not been fleeing randomly. They had been gathering their forces, using their impossible endurance to lead Veltharian troops into carefully chosen terrain where superior technology meant nothing. "Scout Leader, can you reach high ground for extraction?" she asked. "Negative. The humans control all the exit routes. Commander, they are not primitives. They are using advanced tactics. This has been planned." More alarms sounded across the command center. Other teams across the planet were reporting similar situations. Humans who had been running for days were suddenly stopping and turning to face their pursuers. But they were not fighting in the traditional sense. They were using their endurance to control movement and terrain. "Commander," Ji-won called out, "we have reports from 17 different sectors. The humans have stopped running. They are surrounding our forces." Hana looked at the main display screen. The blue dots representing humans had indeed stopped their long-distance movement. Instead, they were forming complex patterns around the red dots that marked her stranded forces. "They were never fleeing," she whispered. "This entire time they were moving into position." Young-ho looked up from his data analysis. "Commander, based on human hunting patterns from their homeworld, what we are seeing is the final phase of a persistence hunt. They have exhausted their prey and are now moving in for the kill." The terrible truth hit Hana like a physical blow. Her advanced military forces had been outmaneuvered by a species that used running as their primary weapon. The humans had turned her own hunting instincts against her, leading her troops exactly where they wanted them to go. "All forces," she announced over the general communication channel. "This is command. You are not hunting the humans. They are hunting you. Prepare for coordinated attack." But even as she gave the warning, Hana knew it might be too late. Her forces were scattered across hostile terrain, exhausted and demoralized, while the humans demonstrated that they were not primitive refugees, but apex predators who had just finished setting up the perfect trap. On the 5th day, Do-hyun finally stopped running. He stood at the edge of a hidden valley deep in the canyon system, looking down at the gathering below. 23 humans had made it to this location, led here by runners who had spent days guiding alien pursuit teams away from the real refuge sites. The valley contained fresh water, edible plants, and caves for shelter. But more importantly, it was a natural trap with only 3 narrow entrances that could be easily controlled. Do-hyun checked his body for damage. 5 days of continuous running had pushed him beyond normal human limits, but his mining background had prepared him for extreme physical demands. His legs ached and his feet were bloody inside his boots, but he could keep going if needed. Around the valley rim, other humans took positions overlooking the approaches. These were not frightened refugees anymore. They were survivors who had discovered what their bodies could do when pushed to the edge. They had remembered what their species truly was. Below in the valley, Scout leader Minho stumbled into the open area with the 3 remaining members of his team. Their purple skin had turned pale gray with exhaustion. They carried their equipment in shaking hands, no longer able to maintain proper military posture. Behind them, more Valtharian forces emerged from the canyon passages. Teams that had been pursuing humans for days, only to find themselves led into this isolated location, far from their bases and support. Do-hyun climbed down into the valley and walked toward Minho. The alien scout leader raised his weapon with trembling hands, but the energy cell was drained from days of use without proper recharging. "Your mistake," Do-hyun said quietly, stopping 10 meters away from the exhausted aliens. "Was thinking you were the hunters." Minho stared at the human who had led them on this impossible chase. "How?" he whispered. "How can you run for 5 days without stopping?" Do-hyun smiled grimly. "Because that is what we are built for. My people call it persistence hunting. We run until everything chasing us dies." Around the valley, more humans appeared from concealed positions. They moved with the quiet confidence of predators who had successfully completed a hunt. The aliens found themselves surrounded by creatures they had dismissed as primitive prey. "You studied our technology," Do-hyun continued, "but you never studied our biology. You never learned what millions of years of evolution built into human bodies." He gestured to the exhausted Valtharian forces. "Your troops are elite warriors with advanced equipment. But equipment needs power. Elite training means nothing when your body shuts down from exhaustion. We just had to make you chase us until you collapsed." In orbit above the planet, Commander Hana received the final reports from her scattered ground forces. Of the 47 pursuit teams she had deployed, only 12 were still capable of independent movement. The rest were either missing, stranded, or reporting that they had been surrounded by humans who demonstrated coordinated tactical behavior. "Commander," Officer Soman reported, "long-range scanners show our forces concentrated in 17 different locations across the continent. In each case, they are surrounded by human groups that appear to be working together." Hana studied the tactical display with growing despair. Her military forces had been completely outmaneuvered by a species she had assumed was primitive. The humans had used their natural endurance as a weapon, leading her troops into carefully chosen terrain where superior technology provided no advantage. "What are they waiting for?" she asked. Biologist Young-ho looked up from his analysis station. "Based on human hunting patterns, they are waiting for us to understand our situation. Persistence predators do not attack immediately after exhausting their prey. They wait for the prey to accept defeat." "You mean they want us to surrender?" "I mean they want us to understand that we have already lost." The main communicator activated, broadcasting a signal from the planet's surface. To Hana's surprise, the voice that came through spoke clear Valtharian. "Commander Hana of the Valtharian Imperial Fleet, this is Do-hyun of New Busan Settlement. Do you understand your situation?" Hana hesitated, then activated her response channel. "I am listening." "Your forces came to our world expecting to hunt primitives," Do-hyun's voice continued calmly. "You have discovered that humans are not primitive. We are apex persistence predators. We have been running your troops in circles for 5 days, leading them exactly where we wanted them to go." "What do you want?" Hana asked. "First, I want you to understand what we are. Your intelligence files say humans are weak and easily defeated. Those files are wrong. Humans evolved as pursuit hunters. We killed creatures much larger and stronger than ourselves by running them to death across endless distances." Hana looked at her tactical display. Every red dot representing her forces was surrounded by blue dots representing humans who had demonstrated impossible endurance. "On our homeworld," Do-hyun continued, "humans would chase mammoths and giant deer for weeks until the animals collapsed from exhaustion. We are the only species in known space that hunts by persistence. Your troops have just experienced what it means to be hunted by humans." "You are threatening my forces," Hana said. "No, Commander. I am explaining why your invasion has already failed. Your troops are exhausted, scattered, and demoralized. Their equipment is failing. Their mounts are dead. But my people are just getting started. the communication channel filled with new voices. Other humans from across the continent began reporting in. This is Soo-hyun from the eastern settlements. 17 Valtharian teams led into the burning desert, all stranded without transport. This is Ji-ho from the mountain colonies. 12 alien teams surrounded in the ice caves. No escape routes available. This is Minji from the coastal regions. 8 teams led into tidal maze, cut off by rising water. Hana realized with horror that the reports were coming from all across the planet. Every human settlement that had been attacked had used the same tactics. They had led her forces into impossible terrain using their natural endurance, then surrounded them in carefully chosen locations. Commander, Do-hyun's voice came back. Your species makes excellent warriors when fighting other warriors. But you are not equipped to fight persistence predators. We do not fight battles. We fight campaigns that last until our enemies exhaust themselves. What are your terms? Hana asked, knowing she had no choice. Complete withdrawal from human space. Your forces will be allowed to return to their ships unharmed, but you will leave immediately and never return. And if I refuse, then you will learn what happens when humans stop running away and start running toward something. Commander, you have seen what one human can do when he decides to run. What do you think happens when 10,000 humans decide to run toward your bases? Hana closed her eyes. She had come to this world expecting to conquer primitives with superior technology and tactics. Instead, she had encountered a species that used biology itself as a weapon. Her forces had been completely defeated without the humans firing a single shot. I accept your terms, she said quietly. Wise choice, Commander. Your troops will be guided to extraction points where they can return safely to their ships. But understand this. If any Valtharian force ever returns to human space, we will not run away next time. We will run toward you. The communication ended. Hana stood in her command center, staring at the tactical display that showed her scattered and defeated forces. In 5 days, her military expedition had been destroyed by creatures that used running as their primary weapon. Begin withdrawal operations, she ordered. All forces returned to ships immediately. As her defeated troops began their retreat, Hana composed her report to Imperial Command. It would be the most difficult report she had ever written, because she had to explain how an advanced military force had been defeated by primitives who simply refused to stop running. But the most terrifying part of her report would be the final recommendation. Humans are not to be pursued. They are not to be hunted. They are persistence predators who use endurance as a weapon. Any species that attempts to chase humans will be led into terrain of their choosing and hunted to exhaustion. 3 weeks later, as the Valtharian fleet jumped away from human space, long-range sensors detected something that made Hana's blood freeze. Human settlements were spreading rapidly across the abandoned Valtharian forward bases. The prey species was expanding into territory that had just been evacuated by a superior military force. And according to the sensor readings, they were still running. In the canyon valley, Do-hyun sat by the water source and finally allowed himself to rest. His 5-day run was over, but he knew it was only the beginning. Word would spread through the galaxy about what had happened here. Other species would learn that humans were not the primitive prey they appeared to be. Humanity had just announced itself to the galaxy as apex persistence predators. The universe would never be the same. Do-hyun smiled and closed his eyes. When he woke up, he would start running again, not away from anything this time, but toward the future his species would claim among the stars.